SCP Secret Laboratory has been around for 7 years now, and it's no surprise that a lot has changed since then. The pre-alpha version of Secret Lab was more of a test demo rather than a release, as it was never published to Steam. Pre-alpha had a much different menu screen, showing SCP-049 and 173 silhouettes in the background with a very different font from the logo and menu options. Going into the game, you could see how this game was heavily inspired by Containment Breach, with the Class D cells heavily resembling the ones seen in Containment Breach, having a different 4-way and no way to escape the facility. Because in the very first version of the pre-release, you couldn't even access the checkpoints, with the only keycard being locked behind what is now known as PC-15, which required a keycard to even access. But if you did manage to get through the checkpoint, you'd be disappointed to realize that the elevators didn't even work to lead you into heavy containment. Light containment was heavily inspired by Containment Breach, with these weird glass panes with blood textures in some of the hallways, having the same 4-way hallway with a bridge connecting upper portions that lead to nowhere, also boasting a single washroom which we have all come to hate. In the later versions of the pre-release, the elevator was fixed and you could go into heavy containment, which had a dark grungy vibe to it. Heavy containment was mostly a Containment Breach asset rip, having some strange rooms, with one being this room with a glass pane, most likely an SCP containment, with a MTF commander card behind the locked door. Playable classes being MTF, Class D, Scientist, and Chaos, SCP-173, SCP-049, SCP-106, and SCP-079, with SCP-079 being interesting to say the least. Having the map HUD constantly open in a drag-click fashion and moving the camera with WASD keys, not many camera options to choose from, I couldn't get the door open/close feature to work, but I'm not focusing on that for this one. 173 had a massive open area when you entered its containment with a really wide staircase leading to nowhere. Its containment being completely different from Containment Breach except for the main chamber. Also, SCP-173's chamber did not have the long staircase we see now, making 173's containment level with the rest of light containment. SCP-049's containment was mostly a 1-to-1 from Containment Breach, not being able to leave its containment as the elevators were broken, so there's not much to say here. SCP-106 was somewhat playable, having the same containment from Containment Breach with working levers to raise/lower the containment, which was a cool feature in my opinion, with the text for its special ability roughly translating to create a transition, most likely being the create pocket feature seen in later versions. Also, 106 couldn't walk through doors, making 106 unplayable. Some other things to note are the fact that SCP-914 did not work in this version. The M1911 reload noises were just Tesla gate shock sounds. And Chaos/MTF didn't spawn with anything, except Chaos spawning in 079's room with a micro HID. Also in the later versions of the pre-release, the Scorpion automatic pistol and laser pistol were in this version. The Chaos card being called Breaking Card, and when you pulled it out, it had no texture, but it was still working. Also, all the issues mentioned were mostly fixed in the latest version of the pre-release. Entrance zone for the pre-release was also just a Containment Breach rip, having access to all the offices that are now blocked off in the present versions of SL, being able to enter the offices and conference room, also having access to the cafeteria, which had SCP-254, which had some functionality in different versions, but was very quickly removed. The Chaos car was this military-esque truck with a strange roller in front of it. Don't know why they would have this. Another thing I forgot to mention is the fact that in the main menu screen, there was an option to choose from different special classes of the playable characters. The only one that I could see working was the Class D one, which had 2 characters you could choose from, the female and the male versions, the female version spawning with the janitor keycard. Unfortunately, I couldn't find the version that let you choose multiple different characters. Also, SCP-457 was in this version too, but it was quickly removed and never had any actual functionality to it, with the old SCP-457 model just being the old SCP-106 model. Versions 0.1.0 to 0.4.2 were the first main releases of SCP's Secret Lab, having complete features set for multiplayer, with all the classes being polished and playable, having removed the old 173 chamber and SCP-457. SCP-079 was not playable in this version. SCP-049 having a remodeled containment chamber, and SCP-106 having the same containment as it does now in 13.0. With the SCPs finally being playable, people were having a lot of fun trying out the new game known as SCP Secret Lab, drawing penises with bullets and elevator juking SCPs, which was undeniably fun with the movement system back then. The SCPs being click and kill, needing no skill to use, it was very fun playing as them, except for SCP-106, which was just able to be recontained at the start of the match by using the femur breaker, which was removed in later versions. The player models did not have ragdolls, and instead, when killed, would just drop as a zombie corpse and spawn in a bunch of ammo. Most of the changes in these versions consisted of bug fixes. In 0.3.0, they removed the old Chaos Insurgency truck and replaced it with the van that we have now, and also gave it more sound effects, introducing the remote admin panel in 3.0, which is a panel used for admins to spawn in players, restart the round, and more. In these versions, they also added the new texture for the E11, which was still a laser rifle all the way back then, and they still had the micro HID as this laser rifle looking model, which once activated was unable to be turned off until it was done firing, with this cool animation where the core spun really fast. The M1911 no longer having a Tesla gate shock as its reload sound, with new firing sounds as well. The light containment armory was usable in this version too, having 3 crates surrounding a table in the middle holding an ammo box and various other items. One thing that Entrance Zone did have in this version was the long staircase, making Entrance Zone higher than heavy containment. This staircase will later be seen in SCP-173's containment in version 1.1.0. Heavy containment had a huge overhaul in this version as well, having changed the hallways into these octagon-shaped hallways, instead of the circular ones you will see in the older versions. Also, with the micro HID room being the same one we see now, with the micro HID still having the same old texture, being held up on the wall instead of sitting on the table. Light containment no longer having the awkward open area seen in earlier versions, now being very similar to Containment Breach. Alpha Warhead Room got an overhaul in 1.0, not being changed since this version compared to current versions except for control panels and the armory, which in this version just had a box in the middle of the room holding an E11. The Tesla gate also got an overhaul in this version, being what we see now in the current versions. Heavy containment armory was still the same as in the older versions, with no table or no decorations, and instead just having ammo spewed all over the floor. Version 1.0.0 was the full release of the game, having new map generation with random hallways every time. The long staircase that was seen in the beginning of Entrance Zone was now added to SCP-173's containment, and will continue to be there even all these years later. New door models were added in this version, and each class now having distinct footstep noises like Chaos and SCP-106 with his crunchy footsteps. SCP-079 was fully removed in these versions as it was not finished in the earlier versions. The flashlight model also got an overhaul, but when it was dropped, it was a huge floodlight model, which was obviously a mistake. Class D cells also got an update in this version, now having modeled cells, with the bed and side table we see in current versions, also having the changed keycard readers we see in current versions. Version 3.0 is where everything started to change. With a new SCP being added, SCP-096, players were quick to figure out that you could no longer run around the map actually looking where you're going. And paired with SCP-173, this just made it a living nightmare. SCP-096 would start raging once you looked at its face, and once it started, would bust through every door to get you, killing you instantly when you made contact with it. The Alpha Warhead now had a female voice actor sounding like this. Those fuckers don't know. Those fuckers don't know. Those fuckers don't know!
Warning. Alpha Warhead emergency detonation procedure engaged.
Damn, Cassie.
The underground
What's
section
up?
of the facility
What's up,
will be
Cassie?
detonated in T-minus 90 seconds.
and SCP-914 having changed recipes, nothing more than bug fixes were introduced in these versions. In version 4.0, Northwood began work on light containment, introducing a new 4-way intersection with a distinct feature, a single horizontal yellow line running in the middle of the walls. This was the only hallway in light containment to receive this change, causing the rest of the area to contrast noticeably. Additionally, the warhead could now be configured to detonate within a time frame ranging from 70 seconds to 2 minutes. MTF and CI respawns were also affected, as they would now be halted during specific events, such as a warhead detonation, resulting in rounds either speeding up or slowing down significantly. Nothing else was changed in this version. Version 5.0 introduced ragdolls for each classes, replacing the default zombie ragdoll. This update also brought light containment decontamination, which decontaminates the area 15 minutes into the round, locking down light containment and killing everyone inside. A male Cassie voice actor was introduced in this version and continues to be used this day. The new Alpha Warhead room on the surface was also added, along with an update to the remote admin tool, which now featured a text-based console and support for custom commands. Additionally, 5.0 revamped the bloom system, but due to overwhelming negative feedback, it was reverted to the previous bloom system in version 5.1.1. Version 6.0 was one of the most significant updates since the game's release, featuring a completely redesigned light containment, the same one we see today, removing the yellow striped 4-way intersection. Weapons received a complete overhaul in this update. All sci-fi weapons were replaced with realistic, modern alternatives, and every gun's texture was updated. New weapons, such as the Project 90, Com-15, and MP7 were added. The update also introduced the Weapon Manager tablet, which allowed players to customize weapon attachments, further enhancing realism by eliminating the sci-fi weapons. This version also added the Facility Guard class, making it more balanced for D-class players attempting to escape. Instead of being killed right away by SCPs, they now faced a more appropriate threat. Version 6.2 primarily focused on bug fixes, but also increased SCP-173's health from 2000 to 3200. Continuing the trend of major updates, version 7.0 was another substantial release. It introduced SCP-939, which initially resembled a skinned dog with 2 variations. SCP-939's vision was also quite different at the time, featuring a black and white screen where players appeared as if in X-ray vision whenever they made noise. However, SCP-939 was quite slow, allowing players to easily outrun it. SCP-106 received a rework as well, with a new model that no longer resembled a burnt fetus, but instead looked like a crispy grandma. The positron grenade was replaced by the fragmentation grenade, and the flashbang was also introduced in this update. The weapon workbench was added, requiring a weapon manager tablet to use. The tablet no longer worked on its own. Players had to insert it into a workstation slot to customize their weapon. VT-00, the plant room, was introduced in this version and remains in the game today. Several quality of life improvements were made, including indicators where you were shot with blood splattering on your screen. The lower your health, the more blood and less color saturation. The bloom and post-processing effects were reworked, fixing the blinding bloom that occurred whenever you looked at a light source. I personally don't like this bloom, as I deal with horrible light streaks whenever I look at any light source, and this just makes it worse. The red lights that appeared when the Alpha Warhead was activated were also restored. In version 7.3, the MTF Epsilon 11 rifle received yet another update, now based on the HK-416 with additional attachments. The NVG had a bright green overlay, and the muzzle booster attachment provided a dramatic increase to fire rate. Cassie gained new functionalities, announcing specific divisions like Foxtrot 12 or Echo 7, and detecting the number of currently alive and or uncontained SCPs. It also announced the deaths of SCPs. Additionally, glass became breakable in this version. In version 7.4, The inventory system was overhauled, introducing the radial menu, which made accessing the inventory much easier and eliminating the large black rectangle that previously blocked the player's view. Elevator buttons were redesigned to resemble the ones we have in current versions, and Cassie received further updates expanding its vocabulary expanding its vocabulary with new words. There was a special edition of 7.3.1 called Trouble in D-Boy's Site, where you spawned as either D-Class or presumably a member of the SCP Foundation. But I believe the roles were reversed, D-Boy spawning with grenades, flashbangs, and chaos access cards. You'd only think that scientists/facility guards would spawn with nothing, or had their default loadout, but now face a big threat of D-Class with guns scattered all around the facility. Every minute into the round, Cassie counts down from 10, and once done, the round would end. This version was very buggy, as from what I can see it was ported from Linux to Windows by someone, and as so, not all the features, like round restart, were working. Version 8.0, also known as Megapatch I, reintroduced SCP-079 to the SCP-SL community with a complete overhaul. The reworked SCP-079 came with new mechanics that allowed it to interact with various systems in the facility, such as sending elevators, turning off lights, activating Tesla gates, and more. Additionally, this patch introduced generators that were required to recontain SCP-079. These generators needed weapon manager tablets to operate, each activated generator further powering up SCP-079. Once all 5 generators were online, yes, there were 5 in this version, SCP-079 would fry out of the facility's hardware, temporarily gaining immense power before ultimately dying. The recontainment process did not need direct access to SCP-079's containment to press the big red button, as it was not introduced in this version. A new semi-automatic pistol, complete with new attachments. It would only spawn in light containment, making D-Class gameplay much more interesting, being able to rob scientists, and much more. Lockers, located in entrance zone now, were introduced alongside this new weapon. There was a bunch of other balance changes and fixes, such as Cassie now announcing what killed SCPs such as Tesla Gate or Micro, and various minor bug fixes were implemented. One notable version of 8.0 was the April Fool's update, which transformed SCP-939 into Evil 999, a massive orange blob resembling SCP-999, though far from the cute, cuddly version fans are familiar with. The update also warped all player class models, with Chaos Insurgents notably having floating masks instead of heads. Version 9.0, also known as Megapatch II, marked a significant update for SCP-SL, taking just under a year to develop, the longest wait between updates since the game's release. This update introduced SCP item pedestals, bringing substantial gameplay changes as players scrambled to obtain these powerful items, which spawned in pedestals located in either heavy or light containment zones. Players would rush to SCP-914 to upgrade or secure these SCP items. The key items include SCP-268, a hat that makes the wearer invisible for a few seconds, however, performing any action other than movement breaks the invisibility. SCP-018, a ball that gains speed with every bounce. After a few bounces, it becomes fast enough to kill both SCPs and humans in mere seconds, also exploding after about a minute. SCP-500, a cure-all pill that instantly restores the user to 100 HP and cures all status effects. SCP-207, a bottle of cocaine cola that significantly increases movement speed but gradually drains health. Taking SCP-500 removes all effects of SCP-207. The Micro HID also received a major overhaul in this update, featuring a brand new model. Players could now stop the Micro HID mid-fire, preserving its charge instead of wasting it all in one use. By holding right-click, the device could be kept charged until the user was ready to fire. All the SCPs were rebalanced in this update as well, with SCP-106, SCP-049, and SCP-049-2 all getting increases to movement speed and or attack cooldowns. SCP-096 triggering time reduced by 30%, meaning that once you looked at its face, it was 30% faster to start raging and chasing you. SCP-079 generator activation time reduced to 1 minute and 5 seconds, and generators can now be opened with Armory Level 2 keycards. Several small changes to room designs and balance fixes were made, including the heavy containment armory now features a table, the micro HID room received new furniture, and lastly, Mug. A few things I forgot to mention were the fact that medkits were no longer insta-heal, taking a couple seconds to consume and healing 65 HP. Adrenaline was added to counteract this drastic change in healing. Class D and scientists don't spawn with ammo anymore, making the pistol and light containment much more sparing to use and not making light containment a bloodbath at the start of the match. And lastly, new weapon lockers were added, requiring different levels of access for the middle smaller ones and the big ones seen on top and bottom. Scopophobia brought a massive overhaul to SCP-096, including a complete rework of its mechanics and model. The new model gave SCP-096 the tall, lanky appearance we all recognize now. Its rage system was also reworked, allowing players to choose when to rage. A new rage meter helped monitor how close SCP-096 was to exiting rage mode, giving players the chance to escape before getting gunned down. Before this update, the constant respawn waves of MTF and Chaos were a big issue, as both teams could continuously spawn as long as one was still standing. The ticket system was introduced to solve this problem. Instead of unlimited reinforcements, both military teams now draw from a limited pool of tickets. Each time a respawn wave occurs, one ticket is consumed per respawn player. The likelihood of a team spawning depends on how many tickets they have left. For instance, if one team has twice as many tickets as the other, they will spawn twice as often. Once a team runs out of tickets, they can no longer respawn. If the nine-tailed fox runs out of tickets, they're permanently disabled for the match. However, Chaos Insurgency can continue to spawn if they manage to gain more tickets. If both teams run out of tickets, Chaos Insurgency will be the only team that can spawn. In earlier versions, players could sprint indefinitely by holding down the shift key. This changed with the introduction of the stamina system. Now, players must conserve their energy, especially when being chased by an SCP. Running out of stamina at a crucial moment could be fatal. However, using SCP-207 would grant infinite stamina, or players could use an adrenaline shot to fully restore stamina and temporarily gain unlimited stamina. Status effects were introduced in this update, adding permanent changes to how the game is played. For example, SCP-207 provides a speed boost but drains health over time. Other status effects include amnesia, bleeding, blinded, burned, concussed, deafened, decontaminating, disabled, ensnared, hemorrhage, poisoned, and more. Screens showing the exact time remaining until light containment decontamination were added, providing a countdown instead of relying on Cassie's announcements. The large projector screen main menu was removed and replaced with the current version, featuring favorites, official, friends, and history tabs and more. These changes improved accessibility and customizations for later versions. In subsequent versions of 10.0, the chair in SCP-096's room was removed, and the coin finally became visible when held. 10.0.5 introduced spooky models for all the SCPs in celebration of Halloween. Additionally, SCP-330 was added, a bowl of candy from which you could only take 2 pieces. Taking more than 2 resulted in your hands being severed, causing you to bleed out and die. The candies provided various effects such as health boost, speed boost, AP, a shield that absorbs a percentage of damage, regeneration, and pink candy, which had other unique effects. For this version, SCP-330 was a temporary add-on, but received such positive feedback that it was later made a permanent feature. 10.1.3 was the Christmas event, and it introduced SCP-2536, a Christmas tree that gave players gifts. Good players received weapons or even SCP items, while naughty players were given coal, which could be thrown at your parents. Christmas decorations were also added around the facility, giving the game a cozy holiday atmosphere as players tried to avoid getting their necks snapped. Few other changes, including the Chaos car now being a train, SCP-096 looking like this, and all the other SCPs also getting special skins for Christmas. Parabellum was Northwood's biggest achievement yet, completely reworking the gun system from the ground up. This overhaul introduced new recoil patterns, bullet penetration for armor, and revamped every single gun model while adding several new weapons. Notable changes include the addition of the shotgun, AK, revolver. Additionally, several guns were replaced. P90 was replaced by the CrossVic, USP by COM18, and MP7 was replaced by the FSP9. This update was also SCP-173's biggest update. SCP-173 received its most significant update to date, featuring a new model and the introduction of 2 new abilities. Breakneck. SCP-173 can move at extreme speeds and make players blink twice as fast. However, it couldn't kill anyone while in breakneck mode. Tantrum. SCP-173 could excrete a puddle of feces, which slowed down anyone who stepped in it, making it easier for SCP-173 to catch them off guard and snap their neck. Chaos Insurgency was also revamped, now featuring 4 different subclasses: Rifleman, Marauder, Repressor, and Conscript. Each class comes equipped with different weapons, adding more diversity to the Chaos Insurgency's playstyle. Players can now press the hotkey to quick draw items like keycards, eliminating the need to open the inventory each time, and saving crucial seconds in tense situations. Disarmers were removed from the game. Handcuffing players was now tied to weapons, simply looking at someone and holding E would disarm them. Coins were finally flippable, a much anticipated feature that made this update a fan favorite. The Weapon Manager tablet was removed and players no longer needed it to activate workstations or SCP-079's generators. Instead, a simple knife lever mechanism was introduced. Ammo was also now displayed directly in the player's inventory. The number of SCP-079's generators was reduced from 5 to 3, making it easier to recontain SCP-079. Though it remained a significant threat, the generator activation time was increased back to 2 minutes, and the big red button in SCP-079 containment was introduced, requiring all generators to be activated before recontainment could occur. SCP balance changes. SCP-939, max HP reduced from 2200 to 1800, bite damage reduced from 65 to 50 and now ignores armor, and 939 also now received a Hume Shield, a shield that blocks all damage except from electrical sources like Tesla, Micro, or the Particle Disruptor. In version 11.0.1, after overwhelming community praise, SCP-330 was re-added, along with SCP-2176, a light bulb containing a ghost. When thrown, it locked down the room for a few seconds upon impact, making it a useful tool for escaping SCPs or shutting down SCP-079 for a few seconds if they were in the same room. SCP-244 was also introduced, a vase that when placed down created a large cryogenic fog cloud. Anyone caught inside would freeze and take damage over time, making it harder to pick up items as well. Version 11.2.0 added SCP-1853, a vial of green liquid that boosted motor functions and stacked up to 4 times, reducing gun recoil and reload times while also speeding up item usage. However, it caused faster stamina drain, and when paired with SCP-207, triggered the poison status effect, killing the player quickly unless they used SCP-500. Version 11.1.1, during the Christmas event, the Particle Disruptor was added to SCP-2536, and later permanently added in future versions. The Particle Disruptor being a laser rifle that was able to go through SCP Hume Shield and insta-killed any humans that were caught in its fire, immediately evaporating them. Other gameplay changes introduced in version 11 also include first aid cabinets now having chances to spawn with adrenalines, new skybox and lighting were introduced to the surface zone. SCP-106 and 049 received cloth physics, with SCP-106 finding his jacket to stay stylish while torturing victims. Several other small changes were made, including various balance fixes and minor adjustments. Version 12.0, Mimicry, introduced a major overhaul to existing SCPs, especially SCP-939. This update brought significant gameplay changes and visual enhancements, starting with SCP-939. 939 received a brand new model and containment chamber. It no longer spawned in the large pit room, and the staircase has been removed. Instead, we now have the research lab, which includes a large soundproof chamber holding a cryogenic tank where SCP-939 stands. The new model depicts 939 standing on 2 legs with a long crocodile face and a disturbing human nose and mouth severed halfway horizontally up its head. In addition to its ability to mimic human speech, SCP-939 now has new abilities. Instead of having the black and white vision, with players appearing through the walls with an X-ray style vision, 939 now had a dark greyish vision with the immediate few meters around it being colored, this effect being called ultra-sensitive, and when a noise was made, such as doors opening, players walking, talking, equipping weapons, taking out medkits and more, an audio bubble would appear on the screen in the direction of the source, and when 939 was close enough, the player would be fully visible. 939 now has stamina, running much faster than its earlier sprint speed, now having heavy breathing sound effects when it was low on stamina. Additionally, when SCP-939 was in its pounce mode, the ultra-sensitive perk would extend greatly, allowing it to see players even if they weren't making noise. SCP-939 can now also imitate gunfire, adding a new layer of deception to the gameplay. SCP-939 can play voice clips of people it has killed, creating moments of chaos and confusion, especially when players intentionally sacrifice themselves to make SCP-939 produce strange sounds like moaning. SCP-939 can crouch into a frog-like position, allowing it to pounce quickly onto unsuspecting personnel, adding a stealthy edge to its gameplay. SCP-939 can now deploy an amnestic cloud that causes players within its radius to forget SCP-939's location. Until they leave the cloud or are attacked by SCP-939, they won't be able to see it. These changes have transformed SCP-939 into a more stealth-oriented predator. Several other SCPs received significant updates as well, SCP-049 getting new abilities like Good Sense of the Doctor. When Good Sense of the Doctor was activated, SCP-049 focuses on the nearest target, gaining increased movement speed. The Doctor's Call. SCP-049 becomes visible to all instances of SCP-049-2 within a small radius, granting them human shield at a rate of 10 per second up to 100. This ability lasts for 20 seconds and has a 60-second cooldown. 049-2 got a new ability called Veracity, and instances of 049-2 can now consume deceased players to regain health. SCP-106's containment chamber and the femur breaker functionality was removed, along with the big red recontaining button, making SCP-106 more dangerous, also saving the femurs of unwilling D-Class. Removing the Create Pocket and Teleport to Pocket abilities and instead adding new abilities, Stalking. Activated by holding Shift key, SCP-106 sinks into the floor, becoming invulnerable and moving faster. Stalking requires at least 25% vigor and is the only way for SCP-106 to regain its Hume Shield. Hunter's Atlas. SCP-106 can now access a minimap, showing connected rooms in a 5-room radius. 106 can teleport to any selected room at the cost of vigor, making it a potent flanking ability. Another SCP that was introduced in this version was SCP-1576, the Edisonian Afterlife Communicator. This gramophone allows players to communicate with the dead spectators by cranking its handle. However, this often results in a cacophony of players making noises rather than providing useful information. For the Christmas update for 12.0, 2 new SCPs were added. SCP-956 is a llama-shaped piñata that immobilizes players if they stay in the same room for too long, forcing them to watch as SCP-956 approaches. It eventually lunges at the player, exploding them into candy. Picking up this candy makes the new player a target for SCP-956. SCP-599 is a cake. This SCP allows players to blow out a candle, shrinking them into a child with a high-pitched voice modulator. This also increases their speed and stamina. The checkpoint system was reworked, with Entrance Zone now having 2 checkpoints. The checkpoints received a visual update, including an accessible checkpoint room containing a locker and some decorations, which added more roleplay potential. The COM-45 was also added in 12.0. The COM-45 is a cursed mashup of 3 COM-15s, having insane recoil and dealing more DPS than the Micro HID, but is limited by its magazine capacity. This weapon is only obtainable through 914. 13.0 was a massive graphical overhaul of the game, being named Fractured Reality. The game engine being upgraded to Unity 2021, the whole game now has a new mood to it, no longer having the dark grungy hallways with very limited brightness, giving the game a new look many people would come to love. Although the game didn't have the eerie vibe it had before, it would take a while for people to get used to this new change. SCP-939 and 079 got a few changes in 13.0, with SCP-939's ability menu being overhauled into the much easier to use system we see now instead of being the radial menu it was before. 079 got a new ability, Breach Scanner, which at Tier 4 allows 079 players to scan certain zones for players that have not moved a significant distance for an extended period of time. But the ability had a long cooldown and reducing rate of power recovery substantially. More smaller gameplay changes were added, shown on screen now. Also adding the Filmmaker role, a role that allows you to make small movies in SL, sort of like Source Filmmaker. All achievements were reworked, here they are now. 13.1.0 added the new SCP-049 containment we see today. With this all new containment, an extra containment was introduced into the 049 sublevel as well, which would give SCP-173 a chance to spawn in heavy containment, giving D-boys even more chance of escape or just getting camped by 173 in the elevators. Also added in this version, SCP-106 now no longer one-shots players, instead having similar system to SCP-049, with a status effect being applied to players, corrosion, and slowly draining health, but not being lethal if you were at full health. And if players affected by corrosion were touched again, they would be sent to the pocket dimension. If escaping the pocket dimension was successful, you would get the traumatized status effect, and if touched while under the effects of traumatized, you would die instantly. 13.2.0 changed SCP-939's area of effect damage. Now instead of giving every player that got hit by 939's claw attack 100% of the damage would decline the further away from the center of 939's screen the player was. So one player directly in front of the swipe would receive 100% damage, and everyone else would only receive 25% damage. SCP-939 also now emits a growling noise after it uses focus. The growling would become more apparent over the following 10 seconds after it uses focus. Growling buildup will regress after 5 seconds of leaving focus. Players revealed by 939 in close proximity no longer produce sound blips. A bunch of fixes to 939 were introduced in this version as well, shown on screen now. 13.2.0 added the FRMG-0, a new LMG which replaces the MTF Captain's Gun, finally giving MTF an LMG to counteract the Logisser. This gun was probably one of my favorite additions to SCP-SL, as it was completely broken, and in my opinion, still a very good gun no matter the situation, having a very fast fire rate and has unique attachments with this massive night vision scope. The MTF Private card and Containment Engineer card was removed, now having MTF Privates and MTF Sergeants. MTF Operative cards are able to open Gate A and Gate B, as before, MTF Private cards were not able to open the gates. Another fun weapon was added, the A7, a very strange small AK style weapon that is extremely unsafe to operate. If you somehow manage not to roast your whole hand off while firing this thing, you'll notice that it has no recoil control, because, well, it has no stock or any actual way of holding it properly. With a lever action racking function, this weapon shoots fireballs every time it fires, and the barrel heats up hotter than the surface of the sun. People hit by this weapon get the status effect burned, a new status effect that causes you to take more damage. Also a massive list of small changes here. 13.3.0 was last year's Halloween update, and it was a fan favorite. Adding a SCP everyone has come to love, SCP-3114, wouldn't it be chilly? In short, it's an animate human skeleton, capable of inflicting melee damage, as well as disguising itself as the deceased. 3114 spawns in PT-00, the light containment SCP-173 containment. With 2 bodies already claimed by the skeleton, 3114 could kill players by choking them to death. Players are unable to do anything about it unless an external source of damage was inflicted upon 3114, such as a teammate shooting 3114. It could also slap players to death and regain a small amount of AP every time it's slapped. If 3114 is successful in killing, it can take the skin of a player, leaving them in a pile of bones. Once that's done, you are able to mimic human beings, also being able to use voice chat, fooling every D-class that went into 914, and jumping out in a surprise attack. But only for a limited time, because after a set amount of time, 3114 would burst out of its skin suit, forcing it to fight or steal another pair of clothes. 3114 can equip, hold, and drop all items in the game, but it cannot shoot weapons or use items like medkits, making some cases easy to deduce by forcing players to shoot a bullet. 3114 also gained custom voice lines, making it the first SCP that would talk by itself. All SCP-330 candies got a brand new effect for this edition, along with multiple new variants: gray, white, brown, orange, black, and evil. Orange candy causes you to radiate a brilliant shade of orange. White candy temporarily transforms you into a ghost, allowing you to pass through doors, also making you translucent. Gray candy turns you into an extremely heavy and damage-resistant piece of lead, and when you dropped on players from a certain height, it would make this sound. Brown candy just makes you shit everywhere. Black candy inflicts a random effect. Evil candy turns you evil, or in this case, the Marshmallow Man. He was pretty evil. We also got the really cool scientist skins with black coats, which I wish stayed, because I absolutely love these. The Jailbird was the Demon Core, if you know what that is. Basically, screwdriver slip, life go bye-bye. The MTF announcement was MU-13 Ghostbusters, and Cassie had a ghostly effect put over it, and SCPs were called Spectres. 13.4.0 was another celebration for the secret laboratory this Christmas. We saw a return of the Christmas tree, with some new loot. The biggest addition being this tape player, a mysterious cassette tape player that when played, caused the whole facility to plunge into darkness, turning the user who pressed the play button into a grotesque, vile creature with no other goal than destroying everything that moves. Flamingos. Personally my favorite addition to SL, these little buggers peck anything and everything. Being a completely separate faction, they even kill fellow SCPs. Flamingos were a horrifying sound to hear. When pressing the play button, a loud cawing sound could be heard throughout the facility, letting everyone know to get the fuck out of the facility. As flamingos were severely overpowered when in a flock, if a flamingo was killed, Flamingos were able to revive each other by using vocalize near a dead mingo. Also, they just had X-ray. They could see players through walls from multiple hallways away. If multiple 1507 were together, they also restored HP. They could also call at each other just for the fun of it. Oh, and this background music is the one that would play when flamingos respawned. This drone just adds to the terrifying horde that was the flamingos. If you run out of bullets fighting flamingos, you could try running away and locking doors, but you'd be quick out of luck as you hear their beaks pecking against the door, destroying it in mere seconds. You notice that there are snowballs on the ground and try to pick them up, but you do nothing other than make yourself out to be a fool, and now you're dead. 13.4.1 was a bunch of balance changes shown on screen now. 13.5 reworked SCP-1853, no longer making it stackable. 1853 now operates on a system called Danger, strengthening its effects when the user is experiencing a life-threatening situation. Danger caps at 5, granting up to a 3x multiplier to its buffs. Some of the situations that can give you danger are encountering SCPs, encountering armed enemies, receiving damage, being under the effects of cardiac arrest, corroding, being an active target of 096, and Alpha Warhead being engaged. 13.5 was very controversial for SCP-207, now only stacking up to 3 times. Using 1 now results in a speed increase of 10% and a damage rate of 1.5, 2, 20%, 2.5, and 3, 40%, and 4. 207 is much weaker now and in my opinion does way too much damage to be considered usable. I have found myself in many situations where I die out of nowhere and surprised to see that I died so quickly just to 207, while gaining almost nothing in terms of speed boost, though it will take some time to get used to it again. Again tweaking the SCPs, here's a list of the changes that all the SCPs got. The FRMG got a small change in this version as well. For the current version of SL, Northwood slightly buffed SCP-207, but will still never win my heart on the decision to change 207. Only giving it a 5% increase on 1, 10% on 2, now being 30, and 3 being 45, previously 40. One thing I didn't mention is Anti-Cola, SCP-207's counterpart. Instead of making you run fast and taking health, you would run slow and heal damage. On 3 of these you get a 20% speed decrease and heal at a rate of 7.5 HP, but as of 13.5.1, you can now only stack 2 Anti-207. Anti-207 has a life-saving feature that saves you from SCP-939's lunge, which is normally an insta-kill. Also, taking both 207 and Anti-207 at the same time gives you this cool Easter egg effect that makes the whole room light up with RGB lights and spawn a dancing SCP-939. I love Northwood for this. Last but certainly not least, Update 14.0, Achromatic Abatement, is one of the most anticipated updates since the game's release for many players. This is going to be one of the biggest updates to date, featuring a completely reworked heavy containment, the biggest rework to a zone ever since release. This update will change countless aspects of the game. One room that's been shown to us multiple times now is the aeration room, where there's a massive waterfall of waste plunging into the depths, misting everyone with SCP-173 and SCP-106 goop. The new 4-way intersection showcases a massive open area with huge pipes crossing overhead, and the words Achromatic Abatement displayed in yellow warning text. The entire place now has a new brownish concrete aesthetic. There's also a little section on the bridge with a stand that looks like an elevator meant to bring you down to the lower sections of the room, though it's likely not functional. In the trailer video, we see a hallway in heavy containment with a huge fan casting light down onto the floor. Crates are stacked on pallets for cover, and there's a power panel nearby. This update will make heavy containment feel much more alive. In the footage, you can see they're working on various props like cleaning supplies, which will be scattered around the facility. In one screenshot, we see a calendar-like sign with SCP-173 and SCP-939 numbers poorly stuck onto it, making the facility feel much more industrial. Hopefully, these hallways will be much longer, and we'll start seeing fewer doors throughout the facility. Another major part of Update 14.0 is the human model rework. From what we've seen so far, the leaks from 2 years ago were true, and both the Chaos Insurgency and MTF models received very different reactions. Everyone loves the new Chaos model. It looks very urban guerrilla warfare, and I absolutely love it. If I saw someone wearing this, I'd know to get out because these guys look ready for action. As for the MTF, let's just say people are calling them Combine soldiers, but I get what they're going for. To me, they look ready to be thrown at whatever threat comes their way. They've got the big boots, sealed suits, gas masks, and what looks like night vision and heavy-duty rubber gloves. It fits, considering the MTF doesn't always know what they're walking into, and this suit reflects that. It's got everything they need in one. The scientist model looks like he's 80 years old. I get that he's supposed to be a senior researcher, but they really went all in on the senior part. It does look good, but since I do a lot of roleplay on SL, hearing the voice of a 12-year-old coming out of an 80-year-old man's body just feels off to me. Facility guard? More like Facility Chad. Looks like he could terminate any D-class with just his jaw. Again, they're making the models look older, but at least he's in his 40s and not on the verge of dropping dead. D-Boy's got the Minecraft 2050 treatment, and I'm all for it. I'm excited to see all the new models with their fresh animations. And I'm hoping we'll get some emotes too, so we can hit the gritty on SCP-106. Now, let's talk about the gun changes. We're finally getting tracers, which will make gunplay more intense, seeing bullets whiz by. Hopefully suppressors won't have tracers or sounds, because that would make them more noticeable, especially if someone misses a shot. You'd be able to respond to a missed shot instead of getting hit out of nowhere with no sound or indicator where it's coming from. Another upgrade is the weapon handling system. We'll now see much more expressive animations when walking, making guns feel more alive. Reload and inspect animations were also updated. The revolver is getting reworked in 14.0 with a brand new model and new features. We'll have different types of ammunition for the revolver, not just different cylinders. We're expecting buckshot rounds for the revolver too. There are also cursed attachments again, like the red dot sight shown in previews. Another feature is the ability to uncock the revolver. If you cock the hammer and move the cylinder to a live round, then uncock it and cock it again, the bullet will shift to the next chamber. This makes Russian roulette playable in SL finally. Additionally, instead of reloading all the bullets, even the live ones, you'll only reload the amount of bullets fired. After nearly a year since its announcement, we're finally getting SCP-1344. SCP-1344 is a pair of welding-like goggles with 2 needles pinned inside the glass. When worn, the needles insert themselves into your eyes, making you blind. After 45 seconds, you'll slowly regain 80% of your vision, and you'll start seeing class-colored orbs similar to SCP-1576, the flamingos. These orbs function like wall hacks, appearing above players' heads when you're within 15 meters, even through walls. The orbs will be blue, red, green, orange, etc., depending on the player's class. If you've made line of sight with a player, the orb will stay visible even beyond 20 meters, for 20 seconds. The brightness of the orb will fade as the player gets injured. Just don't take the goggles off, or your eyes will become a permanent addition to SCP-330. Now that we are finally done going through all the main versions of SCP-SL, here's a few changes that I missed, obviously on purpose. Smoke Grenade was removed in 7.1.0 from what I could see, but I couldn't get an official source on this, and replaced by the Flashbang. SCP-012 Room was removed in 11.1.0 and replaced by TC-01, also known as Candy Room. Before TC-01 was implemented, the SCP-330 candy would spawn in SCP-012 Room on the table. If you've watched this far, I just want to say thank you. I spent a lot of time writing the script, recording the audio, getting the footage, so a simple like and pressing that subscribe button would mean the world to me. I know this isn't perfect, I didn't go through every single version. This video would have taken forever, and I'm burnt out working on this every day for pretty much a week now. It's currently 4 AM while I'm writing this shit. Also, you've probably noticed some of the clips in this video have some really cool custom rooms. Check out our SCP-SL server Site 12. We are a roleplay focused server, being the biggest English speaking RP server, and we have a massive list of custom plugins. And a huge custom map as well, featuring an expansive upper entrance area with things like the auditorium, medbay, with this shitty ass pink couch, fuck you Vizlug, the security area, and the cafeteria. Don't eat the pickles though, Chef Vlad won't be happy. Also, we have a few areas that are built by me, like this awesome checkpoint lockdown. The surface zone. And saving the best for last, the Class D upper area, featuring a whole cafeteria, medbay, working moving elevator, lounge room with Xbox Series X, and a panic system for riot control. Some of the many plugins we have are Smoke Grenade, Tear Gas Grenade, RPG. This thing. Custom name plugin. Multiple admin plugins as well. And we are working on a massive plugin currently, but I can't share much about that right now, but it's going to change Site 12 quite a bit. So if you have some time, come check us out.